Not live, are we? Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I've been going on
It's
here.
okay, we're live now. I
Okay,
just was
thank
catching
you.
up.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this morning we have three people for confirmations. And as I said earlier, for the newer members, the governor appoints these commissioners and secretaries, and it is up to the individual committees of jurisdiction to interview these folks and confirm them, and then send to the full Senate for a vote. This morning, we have Wanda Manoli, Commissioner of Department of Motor Vehicles. We have Joe Flynn, Secretary of Transportation, Agency of Transportation. And we have Mike Sherling, Commissioner, Department of Public Safety. And I think Liz said this morning that Commissioner Sherling is unable to make it because he had another meeting at 11 o'clock and we didn't know we were going to go that long this morning. So I think, do we have two folks, Liz, for confirmation?
We do.
Okay, so with that in mind, the first on my list, and it doesn't make any difference which order, but Wanda Manoli, the Commissioner of Department of Motor Vehicles, has been serving, and the governor has reappointed her for another 2 years, subject to our approval. As I think most of us know Wanda, and we welcome her this morning for any comments or why she wants to continue to be Commissioner of Motor Vehicles. So Wanda, are you with us this morning?
I am.
Okay,
good morning.
And thank you
Wanda
for coming.
Manoli, Commissioner.
Sure. I'll just lead off and the committee members can jump in at any time. Tell us about yourself and why you want to continue to be Commissioner of Motor Vehicles.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be before this committee. I think I'll start with, I had a moment to reflect last night, and I have passionately dedicated my career to state government. And I have been in state government for 37 years. I had my first appointment as an exempt employee by Governor Howard Dean in 1999. And I really hadn't reflected on that for quite a long time. I've had a distinguished career. I've had some of the best opportunities during my 37 years. And and for some of you, I spent the beginning of my my time in state government at the Department of Education. And most of my time at education was to manage the state school construction program, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was a 30% reimbursement program, and we help communities build their additions and new construction. And it was the most positive experience and a way to start a state government career because it was about public service. It was working with communities, you know, and that opportunity brought me to the Department of Buildings and General Services, where I spent 20 years of my career. And it was a great journey. I started my time working with then Commissioner Torti and developing the state's capital budget. And it had moved from the administration over to the leadership under BGS. And some really great things and opportunities happened during that time. We ended up developing a 2-year capital bill. That is one of the things that I'm very proud of, and the state continues to use that. You know, and as time goes on, this opportunity to come to DMV and to work with Commissioner Ide in 2016 as the Deputy Commissioner was a way to bring my experience to an organization and to look at the customer service side of you know, state government. And in 2018, as you all know, Commissioner Ide retired, and in 2018, I was appointed as the Commissioner of DMV. And I summarize that history because I think one of the most important questions, Senator, is, you know, why would you like to continue in this role? I have had, being at DMV, and first of all, as a citizen of Vermont, I just want to, you know, quickly say, I don't think people really fully understand the breadth of work that happens at the Department of Motor Vehicle. We touch every Vermonter. We are retail. We are a retail business, and that means customer service. And you have to look at those opportunities and how do you provide that? I have a great team here. We have accomplished, especially during the pandemic, I'll step back. When I started out in the role, it was really about modernizing IT and starting taking little bites and looking at our systems and how do we make a difference for the customers and how do we provide these services. And with support from the governor and support from the legislature, we've put in a lot of small new systems and we're making changes. Today, it's really, I reflect back on COVID-19 and the pandemic and last March and what's changed for us. We have had to reevaluate every service, over 1 million transactions a year, how we deliver those to Vermonters. And I work with the strongest group of dedicated individuals that don't say no. They say, how do we get this done? We understand, Commissioner, and we have to look at that. I want to embrace the next challenge as we come out of COVID-19, as we reevaluate the systems that we've put in place, I want to be a part of this team that continues to deliver those services while supporting the people that are behind the scene, making everything happen. And I'm excited for the next 2 years, coming out of the pandemic, some systems that we've brought on place. While they're not perfect, we have room for improvement. And I really want to be a part of the opportunity of creating better systems and modernizing the core system for DMV, because that is the next big opportunity for this organization to help meet your constituents' needs.
Well, thank you. That was a great introduction. I've had the privilege of working with Wanda for just about all those years that she's been in state government. We started out with the education and then state buildings, and she was the driving force with the state buildings. Always had 1,000 projects going on, because I've only served on 2 committees in my entire career, institutions and transportation. So anyway, questions from the committee at this time? Yes, Senator Ingalls.
Just a comment. Being new to this game, if anybody ever had, and I know that there are people who do have this opinion of state government or government as a whole, if anybody ever had an opinion about that state government couldn't work, Commissioner, they need to come before you and they need to listen to what you do. And they need to listen to all the people that you bring before us, because I am your biggest fan. I'm your biggest fan of Department of Motor Vehicles and what you've accomplished and what you've done. You not only talk the talk, you walk the walk, and I'm honored to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments? Senator Chittenden, Senator Kitchell, Senator Perchlik?
Yeah.
Yes, Senator Perchlik.
Yeah, thank you. It's just a quick question, just because I didn't know the answer to this, and then I have a comment, is how many employees at DMV again?
So we have 225 approved FTEs.
And you're not at 225 now? You're under that number, I assume?
No, I mean, like any department, excuse me, we've had some recent retirements. We have long-standing employees. It's very interesting here, and it is different than other places in state governments. You either come through the door at DMV to get introduced to state government, and we make a large investment in your training and whatnot, and you move on, or you stay with us. So we have very long-term employees. And just recently, we have individuals that are retiring, and we are talking about people that have 38, 40, 42 years of experience. And, I'll just quickly share with the committee, because some of your children, or maybe even some of you, received a road test by Charlene. And, she's been she's been a face of DMV for almost 40 years, and she's finally, decided it's time to retire. So so the position, Senator Perchelek, it's always an ebb and flow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So over 200 employees. I think it's a bigger department than people think. But yeah, I just want to say I appreciate your responsiveness since I've been on the committee, and anytime I've had a question or sent a constituent's email your way, I've always got a really quick response, either from you or from Mike or somebody there. And that's been during the session when we have something happen, quickly, or on the off session when somebody calls me because they haven't got their license plate or something. So I just wanted to say I really appreciate your responsiveness to the committee and to the citizens of Vermont.
Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity of working with this committee. It's very valued when you listen and when we look at things also from an operational standpoint, when we're looking at changes. And I truly do value that because it makes a difference.
Anyone else? We've heard some wonderful things. Anybody got anything bad to say, or no, it's all good?
Well, I have a question.
Senator Kitchell.
All right. You're looking to the future and what you're looking forward to. You're talking about the IT system. And of course, upon retrospect, a lot of why systems have failed is because we tried to do too much. We didn't take systems that actually had a demonstrated record of success, and we didn't organize the right people to manage the initiative. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are. You're excited about it, but how you would plan to avoid the problems that became such a topic of concern in terms of how that you envision that project being managed, whatever it might be, and whenever it might get funded. Because I know we're doing pieces of it, but that core back end function is still on that old antiquated system.
Yeah. Senator Kitchell, when I started talking to the committee about the systems a few years back, I absolutely agree with you. And so part of our planning is, first of all, we clearly know it has to be a COT solution and a proven system. There is no reason in today's world of IT that you should ask or expect individuals from departments to develop and program these systems. They're successful throughout the United States. Every state has a DMV. All of our work is very similar in different ways, and there are proven systems. And then it moves to the methodology of how you implement those systems. And we have looked at that very carefully. And so there has been past experience or expectations. You hire a consultant, they come in, they do the work, and they leave. Those are not successful projects. We experienced with the fast CVO system that we put in. We changed our methodology. You have to put your brightest people on the team. They have to be invested in that project from beginning to end, and they need to work hand in hand with the vendor. And you have to have your scope of work really focused, and you have to be open to change. You have to look at your workflow. And we had that positive experience. We brought the CVO project on budget and on time, and we used that methodology. I will share with you as commissioner, there's no other way to do it but that way. And it addresses the concerns that the state has experienced that you've brought up. The funding, it has to be, well, first of all, the project has to be manageable. The IT system that we have proposed does have two specific distinct modules. It's going to take up 13 to 15 months for the first module from beginning to end. And so, if we are successful with funding and support from the legislature, we focus on that piece, and then you transition to the second module. So we know it's not going to be done overnight. We know we are not going to be able to do this in a year. It takes investment in time, in people, and in the process. And with that, I'm very excited because that's how we're scoping this project and that's how I'm looking at it with our team. I want the best and brightest on this. You not only have 40 years of an old system, you also have people here with 40 years of experience that have lived these systems. Those are the ones that, some of them that have to be on this team to help build what the future is. Regarding funding, I think you know that the project, and I believe will be coming in at some point and talking more detail about it. A portion of the first module is in the governor's IT budget. We are working closely with Secretary Quinn on identifying other sources of funds for the continued funding of the DMV core system. But I will also say you don't want to buy half the apple, and we have to figure out how we get the whole system. And I hope that answered your question, but I agree with you.
Okay, anything else? Anybody else? Well, thank you, Wanda, for coming. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Okay. Committee, we'll wait and do the, do them both together. We're done, I guess, and, or you want to do it now? Jane, what are the wishes? What would you like to do?
We might as well
Vote now?
vote now and do
Okay.
them individually.
All right, do I hear a
Who's
motion?
our clerk? Senator Chittenden?
Yes,
Mm.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll move the confirmation of Wanda Manoli favorably.
I'll second.
okay, we had a motion to approve the Wanda Manoli as Secretary of Motor Vehicles, and seconded. Are we ready for the question? If so, Senator Chittenden, call the roll, please.
I'll call myself first. The clerk votes yes. Senator Ingalls, how do you vote?
Aye.
Senator Perchlik, how do you vote?
Aye.
Senator Kitchell, how do you vote?
We,
And Chair Mazza, how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay, it's unanimous. And Commissioner, we just have if you submit some sort of a one paragraph bio, then we can report it on the floor of the Senate. We will do that a little later, and so we'll be all set. All right, thanks again and congratulations. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to Secretary Flynn of AOT. This is his appointment again by the governor and for the next 2 years. And I think many of us know Secretary Flynn and believe that he has a big job to do and there's a lot of demands. And it's sometimes we don't realize how many different divisions AOT does have under their jurisdiction. So it's a big job, and especially this year, he can tell us a little more about how it's functioning with people at home and not in the office and getting employees to keep the roads going. And Secretary Flynn, are you with us this morning? I think you are.
I am, Senator. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
good. Well, welcome to the committee and just tell us a little something about yourself and how you'd like to continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And good after, I guess it's still good morning, Senators. For those of you that don't perhaps know me as well, I came to state government in 2009 after nearly 30 years in the private sector in about a 6-year period working with the Grand Isle Sheriff's Department and law enforcement. I began at AOT in 2009, and during Tropical Storm Irene was relocated, and right after Tropical Storm Irene at the beginning of 2012, moved to the Department of Public Safety, where I worked until the election of Governor Scott, when he asked me to take this position as Secretary of Transportation beginning in 2017. I will tell you that, quite frankly, you know, as a native Vermonter, there's nothing that I've found to be really more rewarding personally. I found state service late in life, late in my professional life, but I really feel it's a privilege to have been able to serve my state in some various roles, actually, over the last almost 13 years. And I'm very honored to work with Governor Scott and his cabinet. A lot of familiarity with this committee and other committees in the legislature. I am very passionate about the mission of the Agency of Transportation. Brian Searles once told me that if you stop and think about it, pretty much everybody touches transportation on a daily basis in one form or another, and including what Commissioner Manoli said about DMV, because DMV touches Vermonters perhaps earlier in life than even the tax department does. So, you know, it's a very meaningful job when you look at it from both perspectives. And the agency, like all of state government, just has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dedicated and loyal employees, and it's a privilege to work with them. Our full complement, including DMV, runs just about 1,400 people when all the vacancies are full, and it's a big agency. There's a lot of, as Senator Mazza said, there's a lot of diversity. I mean, everything from real estate to chemistry, you know, obviously to engineering, to construction, to the garages, to the function of DMV, the work they do at the counters, to their law enforcement group. The diversity at the agency is truly impressive. And the thing I'm proud of is the agency's way it promotes its people, the way that it provides professional development for its people. When you look across the workforce, and you know, we have, or at least a month ago, we had 81 people with 30 or more years of service. And that certainly can be unsettling when you contemplate they're at or beyond their retirement eligibility. But I also look across and I see the youth that are coming in, young people coming in their 20s, engineers, young engineers graduating from Norwich, graduating from University of Vermont, graduating from Vermont Technical College, who choose to stay in the state of Vermont, first of all, which is important. They choose to work in state service, which is important. And then they choose to work at the Agency of Transportation, which we're very excited about. And, you know, the opportunities are abound. The need is big. Maintaining a transportation network in good order is a lot of work. It isn't always sexy, if you will. There's a lot of day in and day out work out across the districts that has to be done. A lot of very technical work when you look at the complex projects that we have undertaken, like the Grand Isle Drawbridge, the Middlebury Tunnel. These are world-class projects, and we're not taking them on just to put a notch in anybody's belt, but they're important. They have to be done. Our infrastructure was primarily designed in the 50s and built in the 60s, at least the interstate highway system. Many of our state roads go back well over 100 years. So the need is great. I think the agency is strong. COVID has certainly impacted all of us across the enterprise of state government and across the private sector as well in our personal lives. And it's at times been extra effort to manage it, but we're working no harder than any of our colleagues in state government to manage what they have to manage as well. The agency has stepped up in very many ways, as has all agencies of state government. So again, I'm just a lifelong Vermonter who's very proud to serve his state. I appreciate you providing me the opportunity to speak with you today.
Well, thank you, Joe. I just had a couple of things. Joe has always been available to go in the tough jobs over the years. He was in the floods. I don't think he was home for months. He stayed right down the site years ago. And then we put him the task of, as you know, we own the infrastructure of the rail line, the Rutland Railroad. And we were having difficulties, and Joe went in and took care of that and did a great job and relationship with the Vermont Railway. So he's put out a lot of fires for us over the years. I know that. And he served a lot of different positions. And I thank him for that. Any committee member have anything at this point, questions that you want of Joe? Yes, Senator Ingalls.
I really wanted to be on transportation as I started my Senate career, and I was very honored that I could. One of the reasons why was because of the leadership of Senator Mazza. And then as I got on the committee and I found who else was on the committees, it was even more so. I've really enjoyed this committee and the people that are here. But I wanted to be in transportation because as a town select board member, I had some familiarity with running road budgets and all of that. And I'm impressed with the level of I'm impressed, Secretary, with what the Agency of Transportation does. I'm a big fan as well. I know I'm mirroring what I said about Commissioner Manoli, but thank you for what you do. Thank you for all what your people do. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else? Senator Chittenden.
A couple of similar remarks. Secretary Flynn, your reputation precedes you. I don't know if you remember this, but we've interacted over the last 5 or 6 years in my GMT roles and otherwise. You've always been so accessible, responsive. I remember you speaking to the Williston Rotary, and you really do care about transportation. You see its importance in the state. And for many of the reasons Senator Ingalls mentioned, that's why I really wanted this committee as well. So I'm happy to be here and work with a really great leadership that's in place. So you definitely have my vote, and thanks for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kitchell.
I don't think Senator Chittenden saw the poster on the bulletin board and on Route 302 in Groton that seemed to portray the secretary in a less favorable light than you apparently did. But fortunately, he dropped by that establishment and got to speak on his own behalf. But you missed that episode because it doesn't matter. It seems like every bad road is in, what did it say? Well, I'll let Secretary Flynn talk about his experience when he was out. It had to do with the condition of Route 302 and how local citizens were taking action to influence the work of the agency.
Thank you, Senator Kitchell.
I thought you'd like me to bring that up.
No, I do. I appreciate
Secretary.
that.
Yeah.
This was in the winter of 2019, I believe it was, and 302 was rough shape. It was delaminating, which means the potholes weren't that deep, but they were just everywhere. You couldn't miss them. And there were certainly some potholes, and we were getting a lot of complaints, and we get complaints, but we were getting a lot of complaints. And we were also getting a lot of complaints on Route 2. As you recall, we did some work out there in 2019 to try to remediate that. So one Saturday I decided, I'm just going to go out and see for myself. And I kind of like getting out of the office, to be frank. I mean, this was all pre-COVID. So I got in my own pickup truck and I drove out 302, and it got to be about noon, and I was, I think the place is called Bill's Country Store or something like that. It's right near the intersection of the road that comes from the Groton State Park. There were a bunch of snowmobiles outside and a few cars, and I went walking in just to get a sandwich. I didn't have anything on that, identified me working for VTrans or AOT. And when I went to the deli to order a sandwich, a young lady goes, "I know who you are." And I said, "I'm sorry." She goes, "This guy's the Secretary of Transportation." And everybody sort of turned and looked.
Oh, no.
And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't know if I know you." And she said, "Well, I used to work at DMV and I know who you are."
Uh-oh.
And I said, "Okay, well, I'll take a turkey sub or whatever." So when I went from the deli to the cashier to pay, there was a whiteboard, and it basically said, "If you think these roads, put in a word that starts with an S, here's the guy to call." And it had my name and my phone number and my email address at AOT. And so, of course, at that point, she was a little sheepish, and she went and got the owner, a guy named Bill. And what are you going to do, right? I said, "Hey," I said, "that's me." And I said, "This looks like a great sandwich." I said, "You want to take a picture with a sign?" So we did. We took a picture because he wanted to have sort of like a pelt or a mount, to add to the store. But in all seriousness, you know what? You can't be in an ivory tower. You need to listen to what people say. I get email all the time from citizens, respond to either every one of them or have someone respond to them if they need more subject matter expertise. And I think at the end of the day, in that particular instance, in fact, the guy told me, he said, "I don't think I've seen a state worker on a weekend or when they didn't have to be out working. So thank you for," especially an office type, I think is what he might have said. I took it away as a positive experience and continued eastward. 302 was bad. And then I went up north and I came back across Route 2. And I'm more familiar with Route 2 because I travel to the Kingdom quite a bit. So that was the story of the country store in Groton.
I was just by there.
I thought it was Jane's brother's store or something like that.
No, actually the terrible part of Route 2 was in Senator Perchlik's
Oh, okay.
Senate district.
It was,
It was once you leave Marshfield Village, that between Marshfield and Plainfield was really
so
bad.
is it nice and done now? Are they happy now? The road's better?
Well, Route 2 just is slated for some major reconstruction, and because the roadbed is pretty bad. So that's in the plan, I believe, to do that
It is.
work. So they did a sort of an interim coating to help, but like everything, the frost just lifts so much of that out. So I'm sure that they'll. But since we're not traveling it every day, it's hard for me to evaluate. I had traveled it just about every workday since 1973. So I was quite familiar with it. But now we don't, all I do is drive to St. Johnsbury, and that road's not bad at all.
Any other questions or comments this morning? Senator Perchlik, anything? Okay. Well, Joe, I thank you for the opportunity to work with you. I know I've enjoyed working with you, and you are very responsive to constituents. I know that. And so unless there's any comments, does someone want to make a motion?
Oh,
I'll move to approve Secretary Flynn's nomination as the Secretary of Transportation.
Motion's been made, and
I'll second.
and seconded by Senator Ingalls that Secretary Flynn be confirmed for the office of Secretary of Transportation. And any other questions? Are we ready for the call? Okay, go right ahead, Senator Chittenden.
I'll call on myself first. The clerk votes aye. Senator Ingalls, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Senator Perchlik, how do you vote?
Yay.
Senator Kitchell, how do you vote? Senator Kitchell, how do
oh, sorry. Yes.
and Chair Mazza, how do you vote?
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate it, and congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay, those, like I said, we do not have Commissioner Sherling at this point. We're very short on time. Let's, at this point, we took up the blue light special, and we just wanted to confirm the commissioner or colonel at this time. We had some questions about it last week, and Colonel Birmingham, I wanted him to address those concerns before we move any further on this bill, because it had some questions last week. So Colonel, thank you for coming this morning. We're sorry to hold you up. We didn't know we were going to be that long on the floor. But if someone can refresh our memory about the questions last week, I think they were pertaining to what can the police cars have if they add red lights? Do they have clarify that? Is that correct? Senator Perchlik, do you have? Yes.
Well, that was part of it, but I don't think there was a lot of concern about that. The main thing that I wanted to hear from the colonel is how important the component of the bill as drafted required that the fire trucks be stopped for the blue light to be on, but we heard testimony saying that that's difficult to do with the new fire trucks because they're integrated into all the other lights, so they can't just turn on the one blue light, like it's you have the lights on or you have the lights off. And so they didn't see a kind of practical way to have it unless they have like a little cover that then they'd have to like take it off or something. So the fire folks said that they basically need it to be on the whole time they're, in the truck with the lights on when they're running the lights, whether they're stopped or not. And the fact that it's facing backwards, only people coming from behind would see it. So, but I remembered from your testimony that was one of the things that you kind of liked about it, that the truck had to be stopped. So that was what my question was.
I don't remember us saying that the fire vehicle could be moving. I don't remember. I thought it was definite stop.
That's what the bill says, but the question was if that's critical for the troopers' support, because the fire department said it's all integrated, and it's a kind of the electronics are so complicated, it's kind of solid state, so you can't, there's a way to turn it on.
That's a different conversation, I think.
I thought there was another about stopped, but it was in the law enforcement section around stopped, and that was what we were also concerned about. Is Anthea on? Anthea? She can help maybe reconstruct our conversation.
Hello, I'm here. So I think Senator Perschlick's recollection on the language in S40 as introduced and the S40 amendment as compared to H56, that is a distinction that maintains with respect to both types of lights that would be allowed for the law enforcement expansion with the red signal lamp or an amber signal lamp or a combination thereof may be authorized for law enforcement. It has the language that says, provided that the commissioner shall require the lamp or lamps be mounted so as to be visible primarily from the rear of the vehicle and only used when the vehicle is parked. So that would be for the red and amber lights on law enforcement. And then there would be complementary language in the piece for fire services and emergency services, where it is for the single blue signal lamp or an amber signal lamp or a combination thereof. And that also says, and only used when the vehicle is parked. So the distinction continues to persist between both S40, as the Senate Transportation Committee had me draft that first amendment, and H56 is introduced, where the Senate version says that these additional lights can only be used when the vehicle is parked, whereas H56, as it was introduced, was going to allow the vehicles to be used without regard to whether or not it was stopped, but still keeps that language about primarily from the rear of the vehicle. And if you're looking at the 3-column chart that's posted under today's date from a couple weeks ago, that distinction is highlighted in green on pages 2 and 3.
I thought the police cars could use the red light while they were moving and the fire trucks had to be stopped. I'm getting really confused here. Yeah, Senator Chittenden, I'm sorry, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
So that's to Colonel Birmingham was what I raised last time, and I think partly why you were asked because to inform this discussion. I support allowing blue lights on fire trucks only when they're parked, because I heard testimony from Chief Morton that on an interstate would be catch the eye more and hopefully prevent firefighters from getting hit by cars. I'm concerned with, and this is, I would love to hear you, Colonel Birmingham, I'm concerned with if we allow blue lights to be illuminated while a fire apparatus is traveling, that would actually cause or trigger the concern I've heard you raise in the past, which would send a signal to people from a distance that police are on their way. So I'm hesitant to support any allowing of a fire apparatus to be in motion with a blue light, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. And Senator Ingalls wanted to know about disco balls. If they would help at all, catching the eye and stopping people, any thoughts on that would be welcome.
Colonel, why don't we turn to you and get some clarification? I appreciate this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for having me back. For the record, Matt Birmingham, I'm the director of the Vermont State Police. I have my only concern is the direction in which the light is facing. So I don't have any opinion, nor do I have any concern about whether, as long as it's rear facing on either a fire truck or a police car, I have no concern about whether it's parked or in motion, because it's not facing forward. So as soon as you turn it forward, it represents law enforcement authority. And it could be misconstrued as a law enforcement vehicle, and then the operator of a car in front of that apparatus would have to react differently if it were a blue light facing forward. So my only concern is the direction in which it's facing. So, which is why I was pretty strong on the fact that it has to be rear facing only. But whether the truck is moving or not, I have no opinion on that, and it means very little to me because it's going in reverse.
On a police car, you could be moving with a red light, right? I mean,
well, currently now we cannot, because we're not allowed to have red light. But that's what, I mean, I think the intention is to allow the lights to be activated and flashing when the vehicle is being utilized, whether it's moving or stationary.
But that's for the police only. But then the fire truck, my understanding from day one was the fire truck had to be parked with one blue light. This discussion we've had for years had to be parked with one blue light in the rear Now we're getting involved with wiring and electrical, and this is very confusing. It's something different.
Yeah, I don't want to comment on fire trucks and their
No, no, no,
technical.
no.
I would ask the firefighters those questions.
Okay.
From an operational standpoint, I don't see any concern as long as we have a direction to the rear.
Okay.
Follow up,
Yes,
Senator?
Senator Chittenden.
So Colonel Birmingham, I thought I heard in testimony that reasons why this hasn't moved forward in the past is there's a concern that if anybody sees a blue light en route in transit somewhere, that it's going to send a signal that law enforcement's on the way. Is that not a concern that you have?
That is a concern, Senator, but it's a concern both moving and stationary. So it's an equal concern, which I brought up last time. Even if the truck is parked stationary and there's a blue light flashing, that would signal to anybody, any motorist driving by a crash scene, that there could be law enforcement present there. So that concern doesn't go away, because they're stopped. It's actually probably greater if they're stopped because there would be a belief by motorists that there would be law enforcement there if they see a flashing blue light. Again, I don't think that trumps the safety aspects around the color of the lights. But that concern for me would apply probably greater if it were stopped, because you're at a scene, and when cars are approaching the scene, they'll see the light and think to themselves potentially that there's law enforcement at the scene.
Colonel, were you called to the House to testify on their bill? Did you know anything about that? No.
I have not. And no, I did not.
Okay, I did. I know they have working on one. I don't know what it is. Okay. Who had their hand up? Senator Chittenden?
Just really quick follow-up. For me, Colonel Birmingham, the concern is mitigated by the fact that it would be safer for firefighters working a scene on Interstate 89. So I think the concern is very valid, and I would think of in motion, that concern is elevated for me and not overridden or mitigated by the safety aspect of being parked on an interstate illuminating blue to further draw attention to slow people down. But that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Any other questions from the Colonel? Then we,
Yeah.
yes.
I think just more of a comment. I just think that power of that blue light signifies law enforcement. And I really would not want to see that get watered down in any way. I hear the safety aspect. I hear of that. I do. And I just think that there's other ways that we can do it, positioning vehicles in such a way or whatever. I just think that the blue light is such a powerful signal for law enforcement. And I just don't want to see that get watered down. And I don't want to see, again, and I wished I could have got some of my folks to testify that had drawn some, one being Mr. Robin Beaton, who is both a fire chief of Irisburg and on EMS. And I did see where our fire chief in Newport did poll on one of their meetings that he was not in favor. And one of the most powerful things that Robin said to me was that, he said, I get a lot done on the scene. He says, when there's no blue lights there, he says, but when they show up, he says, things get really complicated sometimes because we're sometimes dealing with people who are probably violating the law. The power of that blue light to me is very powerful. And I'd hate to see it get diminished in any way, shape, or form. And I think it's more for respect for law enforcement than anything. And that's why I can't be a yes vote on this. I can't be.
Any other questions at this time? Yes, Senator Kitchell.
Anthea, can you refresh my memory? I thought that on the graph, we had actually imported that language about being stopped to the law enforcement. We corrected that. Is that correct?
So in the amendment, and it sounds like Colonel Birmingham would not have a problem with this coming out for both instances, the red lights on the law enforcement vehicles has the language primarily stopped. The blue light on fire service vehicles has the language primarily stop. H56 did not have a prohibition in any iteration, and the House has not taken testimony on this yet. So Colonel Birmingham has not had the opportunity to say
Okay.
anything to them.
So it's so the stop applies as you red for police, blue for fire. Okay.
You got it.
I remembered our discussion around the stop for law enforcement, and thank you for refreshing me.
Yes, Senator Chittenden.
So just Colonel Birmingham, while you're here, just be clear, if I were to say I'm only a yes if it's the blue light is stopped and stationary, would you advise against that? Does that frustrate you in any way?
No, I'm not concerned about from a law enforcement, speaking for the state police, there may be other law enforcement chiefs and sheriffs that have a different opinion. So I don't speak for all of law enforcement, but I personally don't have a concern with when the light is used. So if it's stopped or moving, that doesn't concern me as much as the direction that it's facing. Because when you're moving an apparatus, as long as it's not facing forward, if somebody sees that blue light after the truck has gone by them, it doesn't matter as much that they think that might be law enforcement because they're moving. When you're at a scene, there's a greater belief that there might be law enforcement present at that scene when that in fact might not be the case. So for me, it doesn't matter the operation of the vehicle, it matters the direction that light faces, and it must face to the rear because if it is facing forward, it signifies law enforcement authority, especially if the truck is moving.
Well, wouldn't the police want a red light for a moving vehicle?
Yes, and vice versa, Senator, for the police. And I think I said this last time I was here, a lot of the times apparatus and police cars especially have to move on the interstate while they're managing a crash scene. And I wouldn't want that to be limited. And for either a police car or a fire apparatus to have to manage lighting while you're at a crash scene would be challenging at best. So, for either the police car or the fire truck. And I obviously I don't speak for the fire service. They would have to answer the questions on the fire truck and the capabilities and all that stuff. But certainly for police cars, it would be problematic to have to turn that light off and on if you're moving. I see that as very problematic.
Okay, we are going to have to end. We have another meeting in 10 minutes. So I think unless there's any further questions from the Colonel, we know what we have to discuss. And any other questions from the Colonel before we let him go? Thank you, Colonel, for showing up.
Thank you all. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Committee, we are going to stop discussion right now because we've only got a few